Impossible levels. These are levels that are built for the express purpose of not being physically possible to be completed by a human. These types of levels were really popular quite a few years ago, and then kind of went on a downward trend before getting on an upward trend once again. And I mean, like, half of our top 5 currently is full of impossible levels that were nerfed or tweaked just a little bit. And with tools like showing hitboxes and botting, making impossible levels is easier than it ever has been before, and so I wanted to try my hand at making one. I doubt it'll be anything super special. I've tried making impossible levels a little bit before and failed spectacularly, but I wanted to give it a real solid go today, so this is my attempt at an impossible level. But of course, if you enjoy this or any of the other videos on the channel, please consider flying right into that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. But anyway, I guess it's about time we get straight onto the building process. I started off by trying to pick a song here. I didn't really have a good idea for what song I wanted to use, and I very nearly went with Yee by Fixer. I thought it would be really funny to have a chill song, but like impossible gameplay. But in the end I decided against it, and I went with Kitty by Acid Notation. I thought this song would work well for an impossible level just because it kind of just gets straight into it with the intenseness of the song, and just Acid Notation songs in general have this really nice and raw feeling instrument, so I wanted to try that for this. And I decided to go with no start offset because it gets right into it pretty well, I reckon. Okay, so now it's time to actually start building the gameplay. The first thing I did was change it to ship because, I don't know, I wanted to start off as a ship, I guess. And then enabled Hitbox Trail in Mega Hack V7. It just allows me to see what's physically possible so much easier, and it just makes this whole process so much easier. So what I did is I just play tested and then did a ship path, and then I built spikes around that. Now this is great because I can put these spikes really close to that Hitbox Trail because that's like literally where my ship was in every frame, right? I then decided to make it mini, and then I added some good old straight fly. I experimented with a few different ways of doing tight straight fly with spikes and some with ground spikes, and I realized that these ground spikes here have a lot different of a hitbox to the wavy ones there. So of course I used the ones that look more intimidating but aren't actually as tight as they seem, and then built a straight fly out of them. I then actually copy pasted these and then half spaced them along just to make the hitboxes slightly tighter there. But I decided having straight fly like that straight into the level was a little bit boring, so I decided to curve it a little bit. And then for the next part, we would go into 4 times mini wave. Oh yeah. I started off with some very simple basic gaps, nothing to write home about, and then started experimenting with the tightest possible gap I could make. This gap here was possible, but this gap here wasn't. So I expanded the gap back out and then stored it up at the top so I could copy paste it into different parts of gameplay. But before I did that, I started putting some spikes down to make some really tight, awkward, like spammy gameplay. Then I started putting in other objects like this ground spike and this saw blade here. Then I took the tight gap that I made before and started copy pasting it into some really tight mini wave gameplay. And you gotta remember at this point, this is still 4 times speed, so this is absolutely insane. I then put a dash orb in time with the music to mark the end for this wave part here. I then made the dash orb as tight as I possibly could, of course, and then I built more awkward and messy gameplay, of course. I decided that for this part, I would alternate between this type of gameplay with heaps of spikes and really awkward spammy gameplay, and this with the really tight slope gaps. I then decided I wanted to scale down some of these slopes, and I used the previous gap as a guide to kind of make the same tight gap. I started structuring things a little bit, but really quickly realized that doing that was really hard with the type of messy gameplay that I've made here. So then at this point, I decided to hop into normal mode and start playtesting to see whether this was actually physically possible or not. I very quickly realized that quote-unquote straight fly, it's kind of curved, was way too tight, so I expanded that a little bit. Along with that, I just tweaked a few things, moved a few things around just to make sure that it's physically possible. But then, after playtesting for a little while, I realized that a lot of this messy gameplay was really not that good, and so I decided to delete it and start again. It was just too hard overall, and way too messy. And even after playtesting and tweaking things around, because of the way the wave was like lined up between frames, it just wasn't really working out very well. So I started off the remaster of this part by placing a couple of size portals, just to break up the part a little bit. I then made a new, less physically impossible gap to copy paste. And using that, I started to make some basic gameplay. I decided in the end to go with structures like this, and then I added these spikes, which was a big mistake. You'll see why later. Then I started blocking off some of the structures a little bit. Now because this is an impossible level, I really got to pay more attention to small gaps like this one here. I then copy pasted this part of the structure over to the other part of the wave just to finish it off. I also put a saw blade behind this dash orb just to make it that little bit more evil, right? Then I finished off all the structures and then started play testing. Remember how I said that spike was a mistake? Yeah, it just made it physically impossible. And then so I tried a couple other things with a few other spikes and none of it worked, so I ended up just deleting them in general. And while place testing, for some reason I wanted to do this dash orb at normal speed, so I did. Yes! That took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit. So now we're on to the next part, which is also a 4x speed wave. I'll keep this one brief, but once again, I made a small gap to copy paste around the place. And so of course, I started copy pasting that structure around the place to start off the gameplay. I then started experimenting with some slope structures and then decided that I wanted to put some half spikes here just to make it that little bit more tight. I mean, this is an impossible level, it's gotta be hard, right? So then of course, I hopped into normal mode and started playtesting this to see if it was physically possible. Now being used to making gameplay for my own skill level, I didn't realize how long this takes. This is such a long process, because you gotta slow the game down heaps and sometimes you even need to use frame advance if it's that difficult. So I'm just gonna be skimming over any time I playtest from now on because it's really not that interesting. And now it's just time to polish this part. I started by putting spikes on the underside of the spikes and slopes on the underside of the slopes. And then I put some saw blades around just to block any other paths that you could take to, I guess, skip any gameplay here. And then after that, the wave part was done. Alright, now for the next part. I kept it as 4x, which I will do for the whole rest of the layout here. And I decided a cube part could be interesting, so I started with this jump timing here. I just kind of play tested the line and made it as tight as I possibly could, and then I made this evil orb timing. I don't know what I was thinking, but to be honest, I kinda like it. Then after establishing those two timings, I started adding spikes and saw blades around the place just to make it feel that extra bit tighter. And I have to say that the hitbox trail makes this so much easier, it's actually ridiculous. Then I just did a few more insanely late orb timings, and that was basically the entirety of this part done. I finished it off with this blue orb dash orb combo, which just makes it like not that consistent, but it's an impossible level, so it's alright. I made the timing for the dash orb really tight, and now it's time to move on to the next part, which I decided would be a spider part. I started off by doing the classic technique of making another gap to copy paste. I then added a portal and an orb and copy pasted the gap. And then for some reason I thought it would be a really good idea to add some really quick inputs after the second timing. I don't know, I just wanted to. And now of course it's time to add more spikes and saw blades just to make it tighter. Okay, so now the next part. For this part I decided a dual ship would be kinda neat. I started by putting these slopes here just to center the dual ship. Look, it may be an impossible level, but I'll make it consistent. I know I literally just did some inconsistent cube timings just before, but let's just ignore that, alright? Let's ignore that. And then so for this dual ship, I did the really creative gameplay decision of just making a bunch of stray fly. Dual ship is already impossible, so, you know, I think this is fine. But then after that, I thought it would be cool to try and make it asymmetrical, which I tried to do with this dash orb here. But it just kind of ended up shifting both the ships up, and it was still symmetrical just at the top of the screen. So I decided to add this other dash orb so that it will move one of the ships down and then make it kind of a little bit more interesting. I then went back and added some ground spikes around the first dash orb here, and then fixed the rotation of the first dash orb using this snap button, which embarrassingly I didn't know even existed until not that long ago. I then put a couple more slopes in just to center the player after the dash orb there, and then it was on to after the second dash orb. I tried to make two separate straight flies here, but it didn't really work out too well. I couldn't get it to consistently go in there, so I decided to combine them into one. I also realized that you can consistently get into that gap I made earlier, so I removed the slopes there. Then I went ahead and did the Arcturus thing of straight flies separated by teleportals. I don't know why, I just love the word teleportal. And the way I found where I needed to put the spikes for the straight fly is I just play tested it and put it around the hitboxes, of course. And so now we're moving on to the next part, which will be a mini ball part. For some reason, I really like the dash orb at the stupid angle, so I did that at the start of this part as well. I was experimenting with what gap I could make it fit into after you finish using the dash orb, and this works. Really? Then I added a black orb timing in this formation, and then made another stupid timing down the bottom. And then I did this. I genuinely have no idea why I thought that was a good idea, not gonna lie. And then of course, I did the normal process of adding some more blocks and spikes around the place. Oh, and of course, I can't forget the saw blades. Then after playtesting, I realized how dumb this dash orb corridor was, so I tried altering it a little bit. I then added a couple blue orb timings with spikes in them like so. I had to be a little bit careful with where I put these because you had to enter them like in a certain way to make it even possible. But I worked it out without too much trouble in the end. So then I added this red orb at the end just to signify the end of the part, similar to the dash orb in the wave part. And so I just kept adding blue orbs until I got to it. Once I did get to it, I just got a playtest line and then started spamming spikes around the red orb jump. And then I decided a UFO was a good course of action for the next part. I started the part out with this gap here and a blue orb timing like so. I then realized that this gap was like way too wide, so I made it a little bit tighter. Then started adding more spikes around, of course. And then finally started copy pasting the gap all the way to the end because it worked with the music and definitely not because I'm just lazy. I then decided to add these gaps in, way far off the gameplay line. I don't know why I thought that would be a good idea. As a result, this whole part was all over the place and I need to do a lot of tweaking. I basically just alternated between playtesting and shifting things in the editor a few times, and I ended up getting it to work in the end. And so I decided I'd end the layout off there, and that was all of the gameplay parts in place, really. So I deleted all of the start pauses and got a gameplay line of as much of the level as I possibly could. And the reason I did this is so I can start finishing off the structuring and adding more spikes around the place. The only major gameplay thing I tweaked was this dash orb corridor here because, I mean, look at it. So I tweaked it a little bit, added this little blue pad and blue orb combo here, and I basically called that part complete. And after adding a few more structures, I think it's pretty safe to say that this impossible layout is complete. Whew, and that is the whole impossible level done. Yeah, this took me about like 2 hours to make, and it's 16 seconds of gameplay. Bro, how do people that build impossible levels do it? Honestly, how do they do it? I guess I'm gonna get to botting this then. I'm gonna give some live commentary for this one because I wanted to, I guess, go through some of the cool things that I've done with this. Okay, so let's hop in here. I'm gonna set my speed hack to 0.1 speed, and I'm gonna hop into practice mode. I've got the bot going, which is Ybot here, and we can do like frame advance and stuff, which I worked out you can do today. And yeah, so starting off with this beginning part, which is an incredibly tight ship. Now this mini ship part. This mini ship part is absolute hell. I had to expand this a little bit. Oh my god, I'm doing it. Oh my god, how did I do it that well? Yeah, I'm going to enable frame advance, so that's F3, or no, Control and N rather. And then I can Control and H to go forward a frame. So I want to go to about here, go up, let go, down one. Amazing, amazing spam, gotta love it, okay. I wish it wasn't Control H, like couldn't it be Control Q or something? Something that's like closer to reach. H is right in the middle of the keyboard, bro. So this wave part, I'm actually very proud of this wave part. It's very simple with just like the structures, but I don't know, I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. I will say though, just after building this level, I'm getting so much better of a feel for how to make impossible levels. Like that's why it took me so long to make like no gameplay, is because I just didn't really know what I was doing. This orb combination is actually evil. This is the most evil thing I think I've ever done. Okay, there we go. And then, ugh. No, please don't tell me that's not possible. No, dude, why? Okay, I'm gonna need to remember to remove that spike. What I'm gonna do is I'm just going to enable no clip really quickly, just so I can go through that, and then I'll just go through and delete it afterwards. So I know to get rid of that in the future, because there's an S block there, so I can't like, it's not like this one where I can just kind of do it a little bit later. No. So this spider part's kind of interesting later on here, because this is like such a tight timing in there. And then these are like, I don't know if they're frame perfect, but they're pretty damn close, not gonna lie. This dual ship's really, really tight as well. I mean, obviously, it's an impossible level, right? This, I didn't even know this timing would be possible, to be honest with you, but it is. But, you know, if it works, it works. And if it barely works, then that doesn't matter, because this is an impossible level, right? But, okay, this part is the main reason I wanted to do with this with live commentary. What you gotta do for this is you have to click all 3 of these orbs. Once you click this third dash orb, you have to click again so your gravity's on the floor. Then there's a jump pad in there that'll flick you up, and then you gotta click that other orb right after it. So it's like so many timings really, really quickly. So it's like, like that, yes. And then these timings, which again, I didn't think would be possible, but they are. This UFO is like really, really weird. But again, I'm happy with it. And it's pretty good to end off the level because I've got like a really difficult last timing, right? You can see it's like barely making it past the hitbox, right? Like, man, that was tight before. And this last timing is like just a little bit tighter than all the other ones, just to finish it off, right? There we go, look at that. Boom. That is the full level botted. Now, I just got to go ahead and tweak tweak a couple things. So that should be the level botted. Let's go ahead and stop the bot, and let's see if we can look at the final showcase for this. Oh, I'm excited. I hope it works. Damn it, no! Okay, just got done with botting it again.
This is gonna hurt.
Boom, and there it is. Hell yeah, so that took a few attempts, yeah. What am I gonna call it? The song's called Kitty, maybe something cat related? Cat lands on head. Do you get it? Because it's impossible, because cats always land on their feet. So I'm going to upload that. I know it's like an impossible level, but I'm going to upload it anyway, so you can, you know, try and bot it if you like. There's the ID right there. Man, we're in the 80 millions now. And yeah, boom, that is the impossible level. I tried to go with kind of a similar style to the generic level video, which I really hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, I tried to go with kind of a similar style to what I did with the generic video, so I hope you enjoyed it. I haven't actually released a generic video yet. That's coming out tomorrow as of recording this, so I'm not 100% sure how well that'll be received, but oh well. Anyway, I'm gonna end this one off here. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll see you later.